Dear students of Science 9, Science 10, Science for Citizens, and Chem 11, welcome to the last assignment of the semester. This is an extra credit assignment, and I call this the Bird Sounds Lab. So for this lab, you're going to be not exactly looking at birds so much as listening for birds. And in case you haven't noticed, when you approach birds, they tend to fly away, and they don't tend to fly towards you. They're shy animals, and although there's lots of them around you, often you won't see them, or you might see a picture of the bird and have an idea of it, but realistically, are you ever going to see it up close? Well, probably not. And this is a little bit of a problem for your nature lovers, because they often are going to want to know what's out there, what species are there in their environment, in their ecosystem. Well, one way to find that out is not to go by what you can see, but to go by what you can hear. And that's the purpose of this lab. So you'll be looking at, I've chosen, it turned out to be 22 species of birds that live in the Bulkley Valley that make songs. Now, songs and calls. Now, you might or might not know there's actually a whole lot more species than that live here. But the birds I've chosen here are mostly songbirds. Those are birds that sing. And they're mostly birds that actually breed in this area. In fact, they all nest in this area. So, every spring you see like the sandhill cranes go through, but they're not nesting here. I'm also not including any waterfowl on this. There's a lot of things that I'm not including, but I am including a lot of the birds that you're likely to hear on a day-to-day basis if you're outside walking around. So, I just want to start by, defining some terms for you. One is a call versus a song. So birds make sounds for lots of different reasons. One of them is just to be heard by other birds, to sort of be saying, like, I'm over here, is basically what the bird is saying, or signaling something about maybe where they can find food. But or maybe they're scared of something. There's a predator out there. Maybe they're scared of you. The other is a song. Songs only come from the males, and the purpose of a song is for a male to stake out his territory. So what to you sounds really nice and pretty is basically the male bird's way of saying, get out of here, this is my land. So that's what you'll be listening for, though, because every bird species has its own song. Most birds will they're like hardwired to make a certain song and no other songs. And so this is really useful if you want to know which birds are out there. When you're, say, walking in the forest and they're high up in the trees, you can figure that out based on their songs. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to do two parts to this. One is I'm going to show you pictures and play you songs of some of these birds. And the other is I'm going to show you some videos that I took outside, and you can try to figure out what species are in them. Your actual assignment is to go outside yourself using my data sheet and to actually record what you see when you go outside, kind of like you did for your ecosystem photo tour. That's the bigger picture here. So what the purpose is of this video is just to get you an idea of what you might hear, or maybe even you'll recognize some of what you're already hearing. So we're going to start easy, looking at some of the different environments. Now, the way I see it, the way it breaks down is I'm breaking down 4 different kinds of places that you can find these birds. One is just your backyard and in the town. That's one kind of an environment. Another is like lowland forests, like down by the Bulkley River. It's usually got deciduous trees in it, trees that lose their leaves every year, like cottonwoods and aspen and stuff. And another would be wetland birds that live close to water. And another environment I think is important for you is if any of you actually go hiking into the mountains for this, if you happen to be higher up, there's a whole other bunch of birds you might see, or really more like a whole other bunch of birds that you might hear. We're going to start easy with the birds that live in town, and I'm going to tell you where each of these can be found, and I'm also going to tell you an important thing, which is whether or not you're actually likely to see these birds or not, or just know them by the sound they make. First bird you're looking at here is the American crow, and I'm just going to go through these fairly quickly. You all know what a crow looks like, and you've probably seen them. And I'll show you this website, however. Check out right here. So website's called Xenocanto, Xeno with an X. This website has got about 1 million different bird songs on it from over 10,000 species. Here's the American crow. So now you know what to listen for the American crow. The other one I wanted to show you, where I want to show you a difference really, is between the crow and the raven. One thing I want you to notice about the raven, of course, is it's a lot bigger. But if you ever see a raven from underneath, you're going to notice that while the crow has more of a fan-shaped tail, the raven's tail is wedge-shaped, like that. It's got a kind of a point towards the tip. And they also sound totally different from crows. They make kind of like whistling, hooting type sounds. Listen to this. I guess really that was more of a kind of a croaking sound. Really different from a crow. Next bird you might see if you're in town will be these guys here. These are called house sparrows. They're actually not even native to North America. You only see these birds around town. You don't see them in the wilderness because it's not truly a wilderness bird. They come from Europe and they were introduced here by someone who liked this kind of bird. But they nest all around Smithers. The intersection of the highway in Bulkley right by the school has got a nest. They're actually nesting inside the lighting fixture at the intersection. These are birds that are used to living in the city, and they live here is no exception. You find the house sparrow in Smithers. So that's the house sparrow. Next bird is one that you are definitely going to see. So far, we're birds you will see. This is a tree sparrow. Excuse me, this is a tree swallow. Tree swallows are got kind of sickle-shaped wings, really like fine-looking bird. They often nest in buildings. Out by the airport, there's lots of different kinds of swallows nesting on the buildings there. And they're great because they eat little insects like mosquitoes. These are very useful birds to have around. And here's what they sound like. One thing I should mention about that video was it wasn't all that good because there's a lot of other bird songs in there. But an interesting thing about that video is a lot of those bird songs are birds that you're also going to see elsewhere in this little talk here. This is a black-capped chickadee. You probably will know them because they have the black on the head and this really like major white patch on their cheek. And they go to bird feeders all the time in the winter. What do they sound like? You probably know that too. It's one of those birds that actually, as part of its call, says its own name. Next bird I want to show you is the dark-eyed junco. This bird is actually everywhere. It's pretty much as common as a chickadee, but you might be a little less familiar with it. These guys, you'll know them because when they fly away from you, you see the white on the opposite sides of its tail. So the call for a dark-eyed junco is actually really boring, and it's not like one of these birds that says its name like a chickadee. Dark-eyed junco is just a series of monotonous notes. For example, and that's it. So the thing with the dark-eyed junco is it sounds actually really similar to this bird right here. This bird here is a chipping sparrow, but whereas the series of notes for the dark-eyed junco is kind of soft, the chipping sparrow sounds almost insect-like, is the way I describe it, kind of like almost like a grasshopper. So you can probably hear that difference. And again, one thing you'll probably notice there as well is there's all kinds of other birds, but that like chipping sound is the chipping sparrow. That's obviously how it got its name. This bird here is a tiny bird that makes a big sound. It's the ruby-crowned kinglet, and you see them fairly often, but you wouldn't think they made such a loud song, but they do, and they're actually really common. If you've got any trees in your backyard, you've heard these birds before. So here's what it sounds like. So I always think of the ruby-crowned kinglet. To me, it sounds like it's saying 223, 223, 23 at the end of its call. So it makes this warbling sound, and then it has those numbers. It's not thinking about the numbers, I don't think, but it sounds like it's saying those numbers, 223, 23, 23. There's your ruby-crowned kinglet. Here's a bird that you're going to see for sure, and most of you probably already know what an American robin looks like. You might not know what an American robin sounds like. So if you've got in the back of your, I don't know if maybe in your backyard you've got a big tree. You've probably heard robins up in the tree before. Next bird is a rufous hummingbird. So most of the birds I'm showing you today are songbirds. It's actually a group of different kinds of birds as songbirds. The rufous hummingbird's not a songbird, but they do make songs. The main thing that you'll know them for is a sound that you've probably heard, but maybe you didn't know it was a bird. It's this very loud, very, very high-pitched scraping type sound. I always describe it as like a fork being dragged across a plate. They also have a sound. What you're going to hear in this video, in this sound thing, is you're going to hear also the courtship flight, which it's got that type sound in it, but it kind of like goes up and down a little bit. So where it's going to like that, what's happening there is the male is like diving down from a really great height, but then he flies away and you can hear the grating sound. So that's the rufous hummingbird, and it's definitely far and away the most common hummingbird around here. Next bird I'm going to show you is the least flycatcher. Flycatchers are notoriously hard to identify. If you showed me a bird and you showed me this picture of the bird, I would have no idea what it was. Because least flycatchers, there's a whole bunch of different ones that are really closely related, and they look basically identical unless you have it in your hand, which is kind of hard to have with a bird. But one way you'll know one flycatcher from another is by their songs, because their songs are totally different from each other. The least flycatcher has a really boring, very quick song, but there's plenty of them around here, so I'm going to play it for you. One thing about flycatchers, you'll know you're seeing a flycatcher because they do exactly that. They sit on a branch, and when they see flies go by, or insects or whatever go by, maybe mosquitoes, they'll fly out from them, grab them, and then go back to their perch. That's just what they do, and that's how you know a flycatcher. Next kind of bird I'm going to show you is a kind of a warbler. So warblers are a little different from flycatchers. They do eat insects, which is why they come here in the spring and the summer, but they can't stay here in winter when there's no insects. But warblers are a little different. They don't normally do the fly catching thing. They'll spend a lot more time up in the tree, just pecking insects off leaves and off twigs and stuff. Mostly like within the tree. So there's lots of different kinds of warblers. And the American redstart is one that you might actually get to see. When they're around, they kind of fly outside the tree a lot. And you'll see the male flying away, and you'll see the red on his sides and on his tail. So one thing I want to show you about the redstart is something that's true about a lot of other birds that you're going to see. That is this right here. So look where the redstart spends the winter. Blue means non-breeding, or where it's in the winter. In the winter, this bird is going to Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil. All these places where we can't fly to because of COVID, that's where it goes for the winter. Mexico, Central America. This is a big problem for these birds, and lots of different birds that I'm listing for you are like this. They're called neotropical migrants. All that's a fancy way of saying is that they live in North and South America, and they spend the summer in North America breeding and the winter in South America. This is a big problem for the birds because of this. The rainforests of South America are quickly disappearing because of out of control illegal logging and agriculture. What's being noticed by a lot of people who study birds is a lot of these kinds of birds, these small insect-eating birds that migrate in North America, are starting to disappear. People are seeing fewer and fewer of these, and one possible reason, there's lots of possible reasons, no one really knows why, but one possible reason is this loss of their habitat in the Amazon basin. That's just an aside. It definitely applies to the American redstart because, as you can see, it's part of where it lives. Here's what it sounds like. As you're going to see, there's a sheet that I have with this lab. And I try my best to describe the different bird calls in the sheet. You might just want to check that out and kind of cross-reference that with the Xeno-Canto calls and songs. So there's the redstart. Next bird is a bird that you're basically never going to see. I have actually never seen this bird, but I hear it all the time. The thing about the western wood pewee, and here's a picture of it, is that around Smithers at least, it's always way up in the trees. And it's brown, so it's not obvious. You might actually see it when you look into the trees, but not actually know what you're looking at because it's so high up in the trees and the sky is in the background. It's really hard to tell what it is. But wood pewees, although it's difficult to know what they are by sight, you always know when there's the wood pewees around because its call is impossible to mistake. So it was that pewoo sound, whatever. It's one of those birds that says its name like pewee, western wood pewee. So again, you could hear other birds in there, but the one making that sound was the western wood pewee. Next bird is another bird that's easiest to know by its call. That's the red-breasted nuthatch. This is one of those birds that actually has less of a problem from logging of the rainforest because they don't spend the winter in South America. They spend the winter mostly in the US. These are birds that you can actually make happy because you can feed them in the winter with your feeders. They sound exactly like, when I was a kid, they always called it the busy signal bird because it sounds like calling someone up and it makes a busy signal. But phones don't make that sound anymore, so I kind of compare it to a truck's backup alarm. And so on and so on. So this is a bird that you're not going to see all that often, but it's a little bit tame, but often it's going to be fairly high in the trees. When you do see them, they're going to be kind of like hopping around on the bark. They can hop like vertically up a tree on the bark. They can turn around and they can go down vertically on a tree trunk. They got really strong claws, and what they do is they pick under bark and they find bugs under the bark and they eat them. So that's your nuthatch. They don't eat nuts. Swainson's thrush is the next one I'm going to show you. So this guy right here is another one of those birds that you're probably not going to see. And if you do see it, it doesn't look very exciting. But they're actually really common, and they're just starting to arrive right now. If you go for a walk in the woods, it'll be impossible not to hear them within a couple weeks. Swainson's thrush, I think of it as a kind of a rolling whistling sound. Have a listen. So that's your Swainson's thrush. And it's another one of your neotropical migrants, right? If you look at it, where is it in the summer? Where is it in the winter? It goes down to the Andes Mountains. See that? Goes to Central America, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, all the way down to Chile. It's in the Andes mountain range, and then it comes back up to us every spring. Next bird is the O Canada bird, or at least some people say it sounds like it's saying O Canada, Canada, Canada. I don't know about that, but it's a really pretty bird, and it's got beautiful song. And it's, again, these pictures, it's great. It would be nice to see a bird up close like that. Realistically, you're not going to see it. You hear these birds, though, from a really great distance, so you know that they're around, even if you can't know it just by looking at it. White-crowned sparrow. Here's a sort of white-throated sparrow. It's like this. So again, there was a bird in the background there, but the really loud one was your white-throated sparrow. Next bird I'll show you is the northern water thrush. These guys are another bird that you're going to hear all the time, but seeing it is a little difficult because they like to be in dense bushes and they don't like to come out in the open. I think of it as they have whistling that gets starts out kind of further apart and the whistles get closer and closer together. So by the way, this is a bird that is going to show up, true to its name, it's a bird that shows up by the water. So you're not going to see this in really dry forested land, but wherever around here you're close to water, whether it's by a stream or by a lake or by a marsh, wherever there's water, the northern water thrush is going to show up. Next wetland bird I'm going to show you is this one right here, the common yellowthroat. And it's not a very big bird, but if you have a pair of binoculars, it's easy to pick out black face, yellow throat. And they have a really distinctive call too. Some people say it's like witchety, witchety, witchety. Ones around here maybe aren't quite like that. So that's a common yellow throat. If you want to see that, you need to go down to the Smithers wetland or wherever there's it's really wet and you've got lots of willows and like big bushes and stuff. Common yellow throat's going to show up. Next wetland bird is a song sparrow. Song sparrow is, if anyone lives outside town, like by an area with pasture and marshes, say between here and Lake Kathleen, you're going to hear song sparrows out there. Song sparrow looks pretty boring. It's just brown with some stripes on it, with some speckles and so forth, but it has a very loud, very powerful song. And of course, I hope you can tell the difference now between a song sparrow and a crow, because there was a crow in there too. That's your song sparrow. Next wetland bird I was going to show you is the red-winged blackbird. And you know what? I'm thinking probably a bunch of you already know what these sound like. And it doesn't sound like most birds do, because it's almost like a buzzing like type of a whistle. You can tell me what you think it sounds like. One thing that you're hearing a lot there, that really high-pitched squeak, that was them too. But listen to the song one more time. There. It's a red-winged blackbird, and it's true to its name as well. It's black, and it's got red wings. If you go anywhere where there's wetland, where there's no trees, and only bushes at the edge, but you've got cattails and stuff like that, and a little bit of open water, you're going to see red-winged blackbirds right now. They're really common. Go down to Smithers wetland and they're there. Next bird I'll show you is the varied thrush. So I just want to show you these couple more birds here. These are birds that you're not going to see in town. You're not going to see by riverside or pasture. If you want to see the varied thrush or the hermit thrush, you have to go into the mountains. I took a video of these guys by Twin Falls. A video not with the birds in it, but just with their sounds. It's a beautiful bird, the varied thrush. It looks a bit like a robin, except it's got this stripe on its head here and the bandits across its chest. And they're a lot more shy than a robin. If they see you, they'll fly into the tree. It's got a kind of a note, like it sounds like it's upset about something. So that's your varied thrush. And your hermit thrush, this is a bird that it's actually very difficult to even see. I didn't see one of these until I was an adult, even though I heard them all the time. Whenever you go hiking up in the mountains and you're at a trailhead around here, you're going to hear these birds. They have a very kind of like sad, very faint notes, and they carry very far through the forest. So I always associate them with starting out hiking in the morning, and you hear them in the background. as the hermit thrush. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where I went for these videos, and then I'm going to put the videos in as well. So here is the Smithers area, satellite view, and here we are at the school. I went to one place near Hazelton, and the other places were all here. So I took a video in my backyard to show you that you can do it. I took a video down by Riverside, which is like the forest right down here. And I took another video by Twin Falls. So the Twin Falls was to look for mountain birds. I took a couple of videos up there. And then the one from my backyard was to look for backyard birds, and there were plenty of them. And then the Riverside one down here was to look for birds that you find in a lowland forest type of an area. The videos, I'm editing them all to be no more than 2 minutes each. And the purpose of it is just to give you an idea of what it's like being out there, what you can expect to hear, and to get you thinking about where you are going to go for this lab and where you are going to listen for birds and to tell me what you saw. I really hope that you enjoy this activity and wish you a wonderful, peaceful summer.
Help me. Help me, moving. Help me, little bit. Help me, moving. In the back of the wall. In the back